The June 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Peckins, may I have the roll call, please?
Gasson. Hauser.
Here.
Salvia.
Here.
Bachman.
Here.
Clauser. Hardin.
Here.
Kenjuk.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Stone.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. Would you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's start off with line item number 4, approval of the minutes. This is consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 5th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kenzik. Is there support?
Support.
From Mr. Bachman. Discussion. Mr. Peckins, the roll call, please.
Hauser.
Yes?
Salvia.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Hardin.
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, our public hearing. This is a notice of public hearing for 406 South Main. This is the request to set a public hearing for site plan approval, facade change, and payment in lieu of parking requirements. Mr. City Manager. Mr. Peckins.
So this is the, we saw this last month. It's on the Old Smith Jewelers that they want to turn into a restaurant with alcohol. They are deficient parking, and I believe, video, could you pull up my memo, please?
Yes, I can. Give me a minute, please.
No
Sure.
problem. So they're also asking for a facade change as well, and
Okay.
just an update to the building overall.
All right, this is the front and the back elevation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And while Vidya is looking up for that, there's actually 2 issues before us this evening. One is the site plan approval, and then there's also the parking in lieu. Am I able to do both issues in one public hearing, or do I have to bifurcate them?
You could handle both in a single action.
Okay, that's what I will do then. Thank you. Okay, the floor is yours, Vidya.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So the request before you tonight is for site plan approval. It is not for scheduling of a public hearing. This already appeared for a preliminary hearing before you at your meeting last month. So it is there before you tonight for action. The request is from Tom Kalaj on behalf of F&P Companies to operate a cocktail lounge on the first floor and office space on the second floor of an existing building within the downtown. This was formerly the Smith Jewelers building, and it is zoned CBD, which is the Central Business District. There is a minor correction. The site plan refers to the site as North Main. This is South Main, so the correction needs to be made. Restaurants are principal permitted use on the first floor in the CBD district, and office uses are also principal permitted uses when they are located on the second story of the building. With regard to vehicular access, if you look at the site plan before you, they have frontage onto Main Street. So since it's in downtown, vehicular access is through the alley that is located on the east side of the site. There is a significant striped area, and this is a paved area which is intended to be striped and maintained as such to provide for fire department access and fire truck parking and safety vehicles. The remaining area is striped for 2 parking spaces to serve the site itself. Based on the city's parking calculations for the restaurant use and the office use, the site would require a total of 21 parking spaces. There are 2 spaces shown on the site plan. The previous use of this building was retail, which was grandfathered in for 6 spaces. So essentially, the shortfall of parking spaces at this time is 13, and the applicant is seeking payment in lieu of 13 parking spaces. The calculations on the site plan incorrectly note the parking requirement as 20 and payment in lieu of for 8. It is actually 13, so that's a minor correction that needs to be made. With regard to dumpster, the site backs to the city's parking deck on the east side, and they will be using the dumpsters that are built into the deck itself. Facade change was one of the biggest points of discussion at the preliminary hearing meeting last month. The applicant was very responsive to the feedback they received from the Planning Commission. We had previously asked if any exploratory demo had been done to find out if the existing facade had been removed, which is basically mansard with wood paneling on front. If they had done any exploratory demo, and the applicant had explained that when they attempted to do it, the brick behind it is covered in several layers of paint. Attempting to remove all of the paint would essentially damage the brick and not make it salvageable. Hence, the applicant is proposing new materials on the facade at this time, which will include new brick, metal canopy, windows, limestone window surrounds, and crown detailing above the windows. The plan previously did not have any improvements proposed to the rear facade of the building. But the rear facade is in a state of disrepair, and we had recommended, since the rear facade faces the public deck and is as important in view as the front facade, that attention needs to be paid to this facade too. So the applicant at this time is proposing to remove and replace the door and the windows, install new guardrails, and repaint the existing vertical siding to match the facade, the front facade itself. Oh, and they're also planning limestone tile over the existing block foundation. Overall, the improvements being made to the rear facade are consistent with the improvements being made to the front facade and will be an enhancement. The Planning Commission had asked the applicant to see if they could find out something about the history of the building. So I defer to the applicant to see if they would like to present some information for the Planning Commission. With regard to lighting, there are 2 coach lights proposed on the rear facade and 2 on the front. They meet the architectural style of the building and are acceptable. As regards to landscaping, the plan notes that there will be raised planter boxes, 2 in the front and 4 in the rear. There's no detail on the actual planter boxes itself or the plantings to be put, but consistent with Planning Commission's action on other buildings within downtown, these planters need to be constructed of a really sturdy material such as concrete so they don't blow away in the wind, and they need to be sealed to be weather resistant. And we also recommend that the plants that are in there, it's noted as perennials, but they be perennial evergreens, so that they provide some form of vegetation in those pots year-round. The signage is a proposed blade sign on the front facade and decal on the door itself. There is no standalone or box sign proposed for this building. With regard to mechanical equipment, currently the rear of the building has got huge HVAC units sitting over here with no screening from the rear alley or the parking deck. So the applicant is proposing to install a new screen wall on all sides of it with a small opening for access to screen it from view. At this time, we believe the applicant has pretty much addressed all of the concerns that were raised in our previous review letter and brought forth at the Planning Commission meeting. So it's a recommendation that the Planning Commission grant site plan approval for the cocktail lounge to be located at 406 South Main Street, subject to 4 conditions. The first would be correction to the site address on the site plan sheet, correction of the parking calculations to note payment in lieu of 13 parking spaces, installation of weather-resistant planter boxes with evergreen plantings, and finally making sure that the signage is submitted for administrative approval prior to installation. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Vidya, thank you. To the commissioners, any questions for the city planner? Perfect. Is the applicant here by chance? Okay, you want to come up to the lectern? Name and address, please.
Yes, Eric Heider, 44045 Polyarch, representing the owners, the architect. We'll address the 4 items that need to be addressed, which is not a problem. I did talk to Pat McKay from the historical at the farms for the historic portion of the building. He will be sending me probably a list of photos from 1976 based on that building. So I'll get those today, and so if there's any little details from those photos, we will incorporate it into the front elevation to give it that historical aspect.
Wonderful,
Great.
thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Ms. Murphy?
Mr. Chair, just on the rear elevation, I'm going to assume that the decking for the upper is structurally sound?
Yeah, the structure itself is sound, it's just, it doesn't look
Look
pretty.
very nice,
So
yeah.
that's why we're replacing the guardrails, we're gonna paint the columns and kind of secure the rooftops.
Very good,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Any follow-up questions?
Couple questions.
Mr. Harden?
Am I correct, looking at this, that the new facade is gonna remove that one door that goes up to the second floor?
Yes.
Okay,
That is correct.
mic on?
Is your microphone on, Mr. Harden?
I think so.
Is the green light there?
Oh, now it is.
Thank you.
Do they intend to use the rear door off the back for patrons for the first floor cocktail lounge?
Yes.
As well, okay.
Yes, there is a, if you look at the floor plan, there is a vestibule in the back, and that's where we're putting the staircase in the back for the second floor. And
Okay.
for, customers coming from the parking lot.
Great, thank you.
So there's a hallway.
Any additional questions from the commissioners? Mr. Peckins?
So, with a lot of these payment in lieu of parkings coming to you guys, we've been doing parking studies for each of them to justify numbers. So we had our parking team come, just a second, I want to write down what you can. Cool. We had a parking team do studies for this one specifically. Everybody has the handout, just so you have it in front of you. It's gonna be the bottom one, the east deck for 406. This was a 2-week study. They went 3 times a day, 4 days a week. And all of the numbers for that east deck are significantly low compared to the amount of spaces that they have. So there's 235 total spaces there. And most days, they don't even get up to 100 spaces being used at these times that we went and physically counted cars. Most notably, even the Saturday during the market, both of these Saturdays were farmers market days, where only half of the structure was being used, because this year the farmers market's being used on the top deck. So there's still a significant amount of parking to support these 13 spaces.
So to be clear, looking at the document that you provided us, the east deck, which is the parking deck that would likely be used in lieu of parking in this particular instance, has a total capacity of 235 parking spots, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And based on a cursory review of this, at most, on May 21st, 2025, at around 11 o'clock, there was 101 spots that were being used currently, is that, at that time, right?
Correct, 11 a.m.
So there is surplus of, 134, if my math is right?
Correct.
Okay, so based on this, just simple math here, it sounds like there's sufficient parking in that deck to provide for the parking in lieu that's being requested of.
Correct.
Okay. Is this available to the public by chance? Is this something that
It
we
was in
could?
the packet.
I know, you're right. So in the packet, that would be available to everyone else. Okay,
Correct.
Thank
It's
you.
the last page of the packet.
Yep, thank you. I don't have any other questions about that. Ms. Clauser?
Apologies if you already covered this.
Oh, thank you.
For the parking study, can you just explain, I thought each of the parking spots and even the parking structures have parking meters and like technology, the app. Like, why can't we use that data for some of this? Why are we doing like people are counting by hand, just out of curiosity?
The parking data that we get is not as easily digestible as getting this information, to my knowledge. The newest system doesn't have, it's more like ones and like binary counting for them, if I believe, and it's just not as digestible.
If I may help, Chief George also told us that we have this, we'll call it a glitch in the system. If they sit for a day, sometimes they have to be reset, so it's not accurate. People will call in and say this meter's not working, et cetera. And so the data's not as accurate as if somebody going out there to make sure there's somebody actually at the meter. The batteries don't last very long in these things. They're constantly replacing batteries literally every day. So we want to make sure we got you accurate information. Yes, it's a little cumbersome to have someone actually do it, but ultimately, hopefully, the data-driven product will be a little better. Our old system, believe it or not, we could get better data than the new system. They're still trying to work out the glitches with it, but.
Yeah, that seems like a problem. We put all this money into these technologies that aren't producing data for us, and we're counting by hand. But I appreciate the study because it does help, so thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? None being heard? Okay, so this is set for public hearing. And so what I'm going to do at 7:16, I'm going to open up the floor. Thank you, sir, by the way. Thank you. I'm going to open up the floor to public hearing. So if there's anyone out in the public who would like to make a comment or a statement regarding this particular project, please step up to the podium and you will be heard.
Hi, thank you. My name is Steve Winokur. I own Masonic Block Properties, which is at 404 South Main Street. I had the opportunity to meet with Tom and Peter a week or so ago and had a very nice introduction and look forward to their project, look forward to a good working relationship with them. I think they're making some very nice enhancements to the building, and I have no objections to anything they're doing or the change of use. I'm here primarily because we have sort of an unusual property line. I put a letter into the clerk this morning. Did it make it to the commission? So you're familiar with the, I think, particulars. And I just want to be sure, since they're talking about.
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it.
We've not seen that, so if you would expand on that, that would be helpful.
Oh, okay.
Or if you have copies, if you want to share them with us, that's fine too.
Can I leave a copy with
Of course.
Mr. Peckin? Sir? So in 1927, the lot is 150 feet deep from Main Street to the East Alley. And in 1927, the predecessor of my building deeded the north 7 inches of the first 80 feet of the lot. So that's where the developed property is. The rest of the undeveloped lot is 7 inches more to 404. So there's a little bit of an encroachment, and Peter and Tom, I pointed that out to them so they're aware. And I've permitted that, and I will continue to permit that unless some unforeseen problem. But I wanted to be sure, since they're talking about rear modifications as well, that the true property line is respected. So Mr. Peckins now has the letter that was delivered to the city office this morning, addressed to the city clerk. Secondly, let me just mention while I'm here, the city put a nice storm sewer in the East Alley about 2010 or so. And there's a downspout as part of this encroachment, actually, which creates tremendous ice, no matter how much salt Mr. Smith and I put on there. It's a tremendous hazard. And when they mention they're going to use the rear entryway as well for customers, bring that to the attention. When the storm sewer was put in, I met with Mr. Feldman, who owned the property at that time. The current owners are my fourth neighbor at 406. And I offered to help pay for tie-in, and he was not wanting to do that. And same thing when Mr. Smith purchased the property. And maybe the new owners will work with me on that, because it's a hazard for both of our properties. I just mentioned that. I know it's not necessarily pertinent to your deliberations tonight. So thank you.
Mr. Winokur, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have put up Mr. Whitaker's letter on the screen, if the Planning Commission would like to quickly read through it.
I can't read that.
Yeah. If we had a telescope, there we go, okay.
If she could explain to us how
Yes,
that
and if you don't mind, Vidya, do you
I can
mind
read it
kind
out.
of summarizing it just a little bit for us, please?
Yes, it is, as Mr. Whitaker said, basically there is a minor encroachment from the subject site that you're looking at tonight onto their neighbors, which is 404 South Street. This is something that has existed for decades. It's not been an issue at all. So Mr. Whitaker represents 404 South Main, which is the Masonic property, and he just wants to make the commission aware that there is such an encroachment and they have no issues with it. But they also want to bring to the attention that now that the rear entrance is going to be improved to provide access to the restaurant itself, and sometimes snow and ice tends to form over there due to drainage from the roof drain spouts, that is entirely the responsibility of the subject site. They just want to make sure that legally they are protected from anything going on in their site. They just want to bring it to your attention. It does not require any action on the Planning Commission's part.
Telephone. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions to the city planner concerning the letter that's up on the screen? None? Okay, thank you very much. Duly noted. Sir?
Marty Seibert. I'm the owner of the building at 408, 410 Main Street, immediately to the north.
What was the address, sir?
408, 410. immediately to the north of 406 Main. I find myself a little bit conflicted coming here before you because in general, I would be extremely supportive of this kind of activity. My problem, however, comes in connection mostly with parking and also with apartments and people living downtown, which I believe is in the best interest of the city and the downtown specifically. First of all, in connection with the parking, I realize there's a parking deck, and I know the history in connection with the parking deck, and the theory is that people, once there's this beautiful parking deck, would park in the parking deck. They don't necessarily. I don't charge. There's a number of parking spaces that are right behind the building that we own. There are 2 retail storefronts. There are signs in connection with buyers, which I'm sure you understand, that allow for towing. There are 4 apartments above the 2 retail stores. As you can understand, or I hope you understand, parking in reality is much like water. It seeks its lowest flow. It's going to go to its easiest spot. And frankly, when people see open parking spots in a crowded downtown, they go where they're going to take a chance and they're going to go there. Now, that presents a problem during normal business, retail business hours for the business owners there. And although I'm not speaking on their behalf at this particular point in time, I can tell you that that's created problems. My bigger concern is in connection with the apartments, because the people that live there, some of them, well, they work and they go to work during the day and they come home at night. And the hours of operation, I'm sure most of the business of I'm not sure whether it's a pub or a cocktail lounge, but whatever this is going to be there with alcohol, they come in the evening in large part. And what I am concerned about is the people that live there, are they going to be able to have a spot to park? Because we've been involved with this building since sometime in the 60s, okay? People that live there want to park behind the building. That's part of the reason they're willing to live there. And if there's going to be a problem in connection with that, well, I can tell you there was an increased problem when the decks were built, because we had always cooperated. We'd allowed people to move around in downtown because it worked well that way. And basically, there wasn't too much interference. And at nighttime, and I don't think anybody on the council here knows, or on the commission here knows, at one time there was a Subway sandwich store behind there, in there. But the hours of operation of that store and the time when people would come into the Subway store were not really significant after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There might be an occasional person that would come in, but it didn't create much of a problem. I'm very concerned that I'm going to hear an awful lot about people having problems that live in those apartments if this is allowed, and if adequate measures aren't taken somehow to make sure that the people, the customers, if you do allow this, that they're not going to park behind there, because Dollars to Donuts, they're going to, I submit if there's an open spot, you're going to find them say, oh, I can just sneak in for a quick drink or two, and then, you know, they stay a long time. And in the meantime, the person that lives there comes home and they can't find a place to park. That's going to have an impact, of course, on the people living downtown. And I think that's a valuable asset, quite frankly, to downtown. And I don't think it's one that you should discourage. And I am concerned that you are going to be discouraging it if, once again, adequate measures aren't taken somehow to deal with this parking problem. Because I mean, I just don't know how we're going to do it, how we're going to handle it. But there's going to be an increased demand. I do not know how many spaces, how many seats there are in this proposed establishment. I submit, do you know, does the council?
It was on the
I can look on
diagram.
the-
It was about
Sure.
30.
I couldn't read it, and I didn't have time. I didn't find out about this till 3:15 today, quite frankly. So you said there's 30, is that all?
In the drawings,
More than that.
yeah, there's
4,
more than
6,
that.
8,
Yeah, I think
and
that was the
12.
number of spots. Hang on just a second here to look at the drawings.
I couldn't see it, but
24,
I don't need to take up time about that, but I'm sure there's going, I gotta believe there's
14
gonna
at
be
the bar. So there's probably
40,
close.
40, 42.
40?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
40
it?
seats. Okay. Plus the other seats.
Well, nevertheless, that's gonna be a number of people coming in and out of there. At times, there's gonna be conflicting schedules. I just see this as being a problem. I want you to be aware of it. I don't really want to have to call the city. I don't want to have to call buyers. And I don't know how responsive the police will be. And I'd like to get along with these people if they're going to have this establishment. If they need to be aware of this problem, you need to be aware of it, and I trust you'll take it into consideration as you try and figure out how to handle this and make sure it goes to the council and the concern is shared with them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Speak to me out. Any other comments from the public on this particular issue? Okay, none being, anyone online? Rose?
No, there's no one online,
Or
Mr.
video?
Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that being said, I will close the public hearing at 7:27. Commissioners, so we've heard the statements by the city planner, we've heard from the applicant himself, we've received the information that was in our packets as well as the letter that was up there, and heard from public comment. Is there any motion, is there any support to move this issue forward consistent with the recommendation, subject to the 4 conditions? And this would be to motion to grant site plan and facade modification and approval subject to the conditions, as well as the request of 8 additional spaces, payment in lieu of.
It's 9 spaces.
13.
13.
There's 8.
I apologize, it is 13. There is a small typographical error in the last line. So it is 13 parking spaces for payment in lieu of.
Okay, 13.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes. Motion?
Yes, so first off, I'd like to say I think this is an attractive improvement to our downtown. I like that it has some nods to our history with a brick. Brick looks great. I will make a motion to approve the site plan as presented with the 4 recommendations or modifications per our senior planner. I also will approve, that includes the payment in lieu for the 13 spots in our parking system. And I do want to comment on this from a overall parking system standpoint. In my mind, there is capacity in the system, but I clearly hear the neighbors regarding parking for their apartments. My niece lives up downtown, and, she parks in the parking structure, so I'm, very aware of, what happens and how that works. I do think it's something that we can take into consideration for the parking committee meeting that we're meeting on June 10th. I would rather have us really address the problem, maybe with some sort of pass for your tenants, that they could park in those spots, or some other way to address it, because from a capacity standpoint, we have it in the parking system. But I do hear you. So that's my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there support? Or discussion? Okay.
I'll support.
Mr. Bachman, okay. Any discussion on this particular issue before we vote? Ms. Clauser?
Just want to reiterate what Mayor Salvia said about the parking, and I've said it a couple times at meetings. I just think it's trusting the information we're getting. It does feel like we have capacity from what we're being told. I think having sound data, right, it will be helpful. I think hearing from the parking committee, I think I've asked for a report from them, or maybe they can come to a planning commission or a training or something to give us more of a understanding of the status of the parking in Rochester, and then the future vision for how we're going to continue to invest in infrastructure and signage and things like that. And so, and also I believe I asked at the last meeting if the payment in lieu, the funding goes back into parking infrastructure, and I believe you said it was.
100%.
So, yeah, all that I think is good news. I think it's good that we keep hearing that there is capacity, but I think getting some of that just information together and that comprehensive view to make sure that the planning commission's aligned with what's happening in parking would be really helpful, so.
No?
Concur all about the, parking in lieu is a thing that gnaws at the back of my brain, because there are limited, whatever it is, there's a limit, and understanding what that is and how it all works together, and what else is coming down the pike? Like, if we have another big development or something that might slurp up more. I just want to be cautious is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, anything on this side? And I would just concur with the mayor's comments that it's always a balance. There's always a balance that we have to strike when it comes to development, whether it's from a use, whether it's from traffic or population, et cetera. But I think that obviously, I believe in the science, I believe in the numbers, and I believe in the accuracy, so I do believe that there's capacity. I just expect, and I have every reason to believe that the city is going to work well with the developer of this property and adjacent property owners to make certain that if there is an issue, it'll be addressed timely and responsibly, it'll be communicative, and I have every reason to believe that if there is a bump in the road, if there is a situation, everyone will get together and talk about it, and we'll get this resolved in short order. I don't think anyone wants anything but success for this project or adjacent properties. So that being said, Mr. Peckins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Harden,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next is consideration, letter A. This is consideration to amend the City of Rochester official zoning map in accordance with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, Public Act 110 of 2006, as amended. Mr. City Manager.
We are getting closer to the end of this first phase of the journey, if you will. Our planning commission tonight will consider Mr. Jackson from McKenna, our planning consultants, will go over in detail the last efforts that we've done on each individual property. John will go over that. Every property that was actually being changed from the future land use map got a letter, as did everybody within 300 feet of this activity tonight. If action is taken by the planning commission this evening, the next step would be to take it to city council, kind of start the process again. Where we would go through this, and again, a public hearing would be held, notification would be given out to the same people again for the third time. So we want to make sure that we're communicating. We had people call during the last couple of weeks to go over the individual sites, and I feel everybody went away and got the answers, whether they liked it or not, but they got the answers they needed. Mr. Jackson was very available. Vidya, Jeremy, myself, we would talk to whoever we had to talk to, and appreciate everybody's patience. This is a giant project. It's nice to see it's getting to the top of the mountain. John's gonna go over that.
Mr. Jackson, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you very much. Thanks, Nick, for that introduction. And I do want to thank all the residents that came in after our last meeting. I know there was a ton of questions. It's a lot of information to absorb. It's a lot of change for a community that hasn't seen this much change in a long time. So I appreciate everyone's willingness to come in, ask their questions. They didn't go easy on me, I'll tell you that for sure. People were very passionate about what their concerns were, but they're all very polite, all very nice, and so I appreciated their patience in going through the process. I've gone over this before, but I just want to touch on a couple things real quick. First of all, this whole project is an extension of the city's master plan, which was adopted in April of 2022. There's been some questions floating around that I've heard about whether the plan was formally adopted or not. So I didn't want to be caught flat-footed up here and not know. So I went back and checked, and sure enough, there's a resolution in the master plan saying that the city council adopted it on April 11th, 2022. So this is the basis, this master plan, the future land use plan that's in that master plan is the basis for the zoning districts that we've created and the zoning map that we are proposing, that the Planning Commission is considering tonight. This is the process that we went through. We had the public hearing on April 7th, and then we opened it up for additional feedback, which again, as I mentioned, was robust, to say the least. Here's a future land use plan. It's too small for anyone to make heads or tail of, but we'll come back to it if we need to. The zoning districts that were created, you can see a lot of work was done by the Planning Commission in considering how we needed to tailor the city's zoning ordinance to implement the master plan. That meant that some new districts were created. That meant some of the existing districts were modified to more closely align with the land use policies in the master plan. So a lot of work went into this. over the course of a couple of years to make sure we got it right. Here's the existing city zoning map. Here was the first draft, and again, there's way too much to take in on this, but I just wanted to show the draft, and we can come back to it. Here's the revised draft, and I'm going to focus in on the areas that changed. So I'm happy to report that out of all of the properties that are experiencing a change in their zoning, whether their district is being modified or they're going to wake up at the end of this process with a new zoning designation, the vast majority have, sort of fit into the process, and things are moving along smoothly. There are a few projects, a few properties in the city, of course, where that's not going to happen. So this is where we sort of focused our attention between the last meeting and this meeting to see how we could chart a path forward to figure out how to handle these properties. The first one I'm going to talk about is 322 Albertson. This, we're all very familiar with this property. It has an industrial building on it, industrial use on it currently, which is legal non-conforming. The current zoning for this is residential. The master plan, future land use plan, designated this for industrial. I'm sure for a number of reasons, because of the existing use, because of the environmental challenges associated with it. A lot of things went into the designation of the future land use plan. However, changing this property to industrial, we believe creates maybe more challenges than it solves. Fortunately, again, the city has the foresight to create a zoning tool called its special projects designation. So in the master plan, it also designated this site as a special project site. And so what we're recommending is that this site maintain its residential zoning, but it be designated as a special projects eligible site on the zoning map. Now, this will allow the property owners to come back later after this has been adopted and petition the city for the future development of that site. And there's a very specific process laid out in the zoning ordinance for how that process would be conducted and what review standards would be applied, things like compatibility with adjacent residential uses, consistency with the city's master plan and land use policies are all things that would be considered. If the applicant does come through with that request and has a project, a special project approved on that site, that means from that point forward, the site would no longer be non-conforming, which means it would no longer have constraints with respect to trying to get financing for improvements to the site. They would also not, be forced to, they would be allowed to rebuild the building if it were demolished for some reason. So there are a lot of benefits to the future reinvestment of this, but also a lot of safeguards with respect to how the future use of this site is managed in relationship to the adjacent residents. Public hearings would have to be held. Everyone within 300 feet would be notified of a request for special projects on this site. So really, this approach of maintaining the underlying residential zoning and applying the special projects overlay to it is the best zoning approach to this challenging piece of property. So that's our recommendation for this property. The next property that we modified from the last time you saw the zoning map is the property on the south side of Albertson, which was formerly shown as two-family designation, which was what was shown in the future land use plan. In this case, well, let me back up for a second. When we first started talking to the City Council and the Planning Commission of how we wanted to implement the zoning map, there were two different approaches. One was basically an organic approach, which would mean that people could ask for rezoning of their property to one of the new districts. Okay, that of course would have taken decades and decades for the city to have all of the properties zoned in alignment with the master plan. The other approach was basically the approach we're taking now, which is basically rezoning everything into alignment with the master plan, the future land use plan. However, there are some properties like this one on the south side of Albertson where the current property owner has no ambition to redevelop the site for anything other than single family. Rezoning it to two-family designation really doesn't advance a pressing land use objective of the cities. So in this case, we're going to allow this rezoning to happen organically. When and if someone owns this property, buys this property, wants to come into the city and request a rezoning to RT, the city can consider it at that time. So we'll allow this to sort of evolve organically. Again, because there's no pressing land use objective of the cities on this site, and there's no desire that we're aware of the property owner to redevelop the site either. So that's why our recommendation is to maintain the current single-family zoning on this property, with the understanding that they may come in the future and request a rezoning. This change is over on Walnut. There was a section of this area south of 2nd Street that was shown in the last zoning map as Central Business District. That more or less was a carryover from the existing zoning, and the intent all along was for this area that you see circled to be part of the transition district, which allows for a couple of properties on the north end of this block on the south side of 2nd Street that has residential use and commercial use, which both fit into the transition district. So this was more or less a cleanup of this area here. This area, 302 West University Drive, you can see circled here that red parcel is currently commercial use. It's been sort of a higher level commercial use for some time, and so I think the decision collectively was extending the Downtown Edge 2 district across the street to include this property. It's adjacent to the, or across the street, I should say, from the DE2 district, provides, good transition between the office district to the west and the multiple family district to the north. So it sort of fit into this area, and it's not inconsistent with future land use objectives of the master plan. And that's it, really. So, these 4 areas were the only ones that really needed us to drill down and find an individual solution to these properties in order to advance the overall project of getting the overall zoning done. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Real quickly, next steps, as Nick pointed out, if we get approval tonight, Planning Commission's comfortable with this, it'll go on to the City Council for another public hearing at a date to be announced.
Okay, well, a couple things. Number one is, personally, I want to thank you and your team for all the help that you provided me personally, my colleagues, and I know many members of the public. You guys definitely made yourselves available above and beyond what I ever had expected. So thank you for answering all my dumb questions, all right? I really genuinely, it brought me back to calculus in high school, okay? So thank you. And number two is, I would just like to, if there's any comments or questions, I guess, for Mr. Jackson, let's do those first. Then what I'm going to do is, although this is not a public hearing, and I don't want to call it a public hearing because there's different rules that come into play with that, but I'm going to call an audible, and I am going to, I think, open it up for public comment, okay? Because if there's people here who want to talk a little bit about this process, by all means, I want them to come up. But just again, just a gentle reminder, it's not a Q&A, it's not a debate. This is your opportunity to come up and talk a little bit, and we're not being evasive by not answering, but by all means, if you have a comment that you want to make on this issue that's before us now, please, we'll give you all the time that you want up at the lectern, okay? But for right now, why don't we open it up to discussion, questions amongst the commissioners. So anyone who has a question for Mr. Jackson or Mr. Bander, Mr. Peckins, now is the time. So if anyone wants to ask a question, I'll call on that person first.
I have a question if we can go in.
Ms. Clauser, you're first.
Okay, I'll start. I have a question about, first, thank you so much for all the work. I echo Kristen's comments. And I'm also supportive of the recommendations that you guys have made. I think those are great changes. I think the Albertson one was a very thoughtful compromise that everyone came to in regards to keeping it residential to protect the neighborhood, but also designating it special projects. So there's some flexibility there too. So thank you for all that. My question now is about the properties on Woodward, and they are marked light industrial in the proposed zoning map. But if you look at the master plan and the future use map, those are not light industrial, they're all residential, except for the DPW, which is public space, which we do not have. And I'm wondering why some of them were changed, specifically Solaronics and Dillman and Upton were changed for residential development, but the other ones we are keeping light industrial. It doesn't seem that that's consistent or goes along with the future land use map.
So I'm going to punt on this one a little bit to Nick because he's more familiar with the Solaronics site than I am. But
The Solaronics site.
again, this site is designated as public on the future land use map. We don't have a public zoning designation. It's the DPW yard, which is a pretty intensive use. We have some other non-residential, some, sort of heavy commercial uses in this area. We have a drive or a car wash over here. So, I mean, none of those uses fit into the future land use category of multiple family. And the existing zoning on those sites are also light industrial. So I think, again, we felt leaving it with the existing zoning designation was probably the best
So Dillman and Upton is currently zoned light industrial, but you're not leaving that one. So why picking and choosing here which parcels to keep and which ones to change to residential?
Mr. Banda?
A little bit late. Mostly it was the size of the parcels, where Claire, which is the class action, not class,
The gym.
the gym, and then that one building, and then the car wash, they're really skinny sites that you really couldn't develop them on their own. And then the gentleman that owns his classic car place, that's his private garage behind them. Again, we couldn't meet any of the standards for RM or RT, so.
So that makes sense to me. I think, though, it doesn't make sense either that they would be sized then for industrial. I feel like the stuff that's on it now, the businesses are commercial, mixed use, would maybe be a more appropriate zoning for those areas. I think industrial, for all the reasons we're changing Alberts into residential, just like the future land use map is asking for those parcels to be residential, I think we down zone, if that's a term, and go to either mixed use or residential. I don't think we want semi-trucks, water plants, sewer plants, industrial, right next to our community garden, next to the skate park, next to the basketball, to the trails, to the municipal park. That doesn't feel like where industrial is supposed to be. And because, like you said, those parcels are so small, I also don't think it makes sense at all for industrial to be there. And so if we do vote on this tonight, I would ask that those will either align with the future land use map and go to a mixed use, or I think it's mixed residential is what we have, RM1, or mixed use development. I'd be open to that too, and I welcome colleagues' thoughts on what those should be. But I don't think light industrial is the right one.
Nick brings up a good point, and that is the size constraints of the property. I'm sure that the uses on there are probably non-conforming with respect to our current standards. And non-conformities are tricky, right? I've heard conversations in the past, well, are we trying to eliminate non-conformities with these zoning changes, or are we creating more non-conformities with these zoning changes? And the fact of the matter is, we may eliminate some, we may create some more. So it's just trying to move in the right direction of the future land use plan. With respect to the properties that you're referring to, changing them obviously to a mixed residential district would create nonconformities on that property, right? That don't currently,
Right. Yeah.
That may not exist with respect to the land uses themselves. It may exist with respect to the development standards. So maybe, the other approach could be is making them special projects also. I mean, that might also be an approach to address the fact that changing the designation to mixed residential is going to create a problem for the current property owners.
Well, so my understanding is a couple of things. Those properties, even if we zone for the future, they are grandfathered in, might be the term.
Nonconformities, legal nonconformities.
Right, until the business sells. So really, it doesn't affect the businesses that are on there today. They can continue in operation in perpetuity until they sell. And then my other understanding was when Attorney Crott was here last time, he said we weren't trying to eliminate nonconformities with zoning, right? And that nonconformities are okay as long as it's headed in the direction we need, right? And so again, I would recommend we go with the future land use and go to residential or mixed use and down, because I think the stuff that is on there now, I shouldn't say stuff, the businesses that are on there now, the Eagles and the fitness center, those fit mixed use. They do not fit light industrial, to your point, which is what we have it. So I think, again, I'd be open to either one of those, either exactly what the map says or downgrading it, but not light industrial.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Vidya.
Okay. I would just like to add another item to think about while considering the zoning designation for that area. With the exception of the Eagles outdoor dining and the Eagle Club, that is the Fraternal Order of Eagles, most of those parcels, such as the car wash and the mechanic, somebody storing classic cars and doing auto workshop, those kind of properties, they have been there for a really long time. You really don't know what kind of contamination is there in the soil. We reach a situation when you have a contaminated property that is a brownfield, trying to redo it for residential uses is a very, very high bar, not just single family residential, and we're talking about mixed residential. Trying to do an environmental cleanup on such a tiny parcel, on such small parcels, is cost prohibitive to ever getting those parcels into residential designation. In all likelihood, they will remain non-residential in their use. So that is one of the thoughts behind leaving them as industrial and keeping them consistent with what the existing use is there. The chances of those property being cleaned up to meet what would be required for it to sustain a residential use, the bar is significantly high. We actually saw that even on the Albertson property long ago when there was an attempt to try and make that residential. The Solaronics property is another example why Solaronics was in fact changed simply because of its size. The size of the property and the amount of homes that could be built on it made it feasible to actually invest money in a cleanup of the brownfield contamination that is in it. So that is one of the thoughts to keep in the back of the mind. The car wash ever turning into residential of any kind or any of the other properties that have been used industrial for a really long time is not something that is going to be as straightforward, if I may. So just wanted to put that thought out there.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Clauser.
So that all makes sense, and I guess I'll pause on this one because what I'm hearing then is if we have a good case for something, we can stray away from the future land use map because that's what we're doing because of all the reasons, Vidya, you just said, right? So then that gets to my next comment and like area of question here is South Street. I know we had a lot of public comment on that, a lot of small local businesses, nonprofits that have been limited in what they can do on that street because of the light industrial. There were comments about it's also prime real estate with riverfront there, and you can imagine a future where there is potential there for a kind of corridor of small businesses, a riverfront district. But my understanding was we weren't going to go there at this time because we wanted to follow the master plan. So in this instance, we're saying we don't have a strong enough case to change South Street designations, but on Ludlow, or Woodward and Ludlow there, we do. So it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like there's, It doesn't seem to be consistent here when we are sticking with the master plan and when we can stray.
Yeah. Again, I would like to point out that we're fortunate that the vast majority of the properties that we're looking at changing the zoning on fit relatively neatly within the master plan and the future land use policies and the land use policies. There are a couple, like the ones up there that you pointed out where the Elks are and the car wash are, that's currently all industrially zoned. We're trying to change that and gradually move it away from industrial, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to be clunky, and it's not going to be neat and easy. Those are non-conforming uses. Those are relatively incompatible uses with the residential area there. So that's a little clunky area to deal with, right? It doesn't fit neatly. You're talking on South Street to make a wholesale land use
Yeah.
change policy. You're saying for years that area's been designated for industrial, the whole area, whole district has been designated for industrial. Now you're saying let's change that direction and go into something where we might have commercial uses, restaurants, mixed use, all that kind of thing down there.
Yeah.
That's sort of a wholesale change in land use policy. And I would say in order to give that adequate consideration, it really requires an amendment to the master plan. You know, communities do special area studies all the time. So maybe South Street itself, with people saying that they want accessory retail use down there, they want to see mixed use possibly down there. Maybe we need to do a South Street area study and come up with an amendment to the master plan that says, we got a different vision for South Street. And then we can come back and change the zoning accordingly. That would be my suggestion, and that's how those two areas differ.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I guess the last thing is just if we can get an update on where we are with South Street, because I do know that that had some influence into how we wanted to have the zoning discussion, as if the zoning helped or hurt. So if we could get an update on how that's going to, would be helpful.
City Manager?
So I can provide a little bit update about the north side of South Street, Commissioner Clauser, before Nick provides an update on the retail sales component of some of those warehousing uses. I was part of the discussion for the master plan since the original discussion started in 2010. And South Street was discussed extensively, both the north and the south sides of South Street. Now, the north side of South Street is predominantly located almost entirely within the 100-year floodplain for the Clinton River. That poses significant amount of challenges for any development to actually come in there. So prior planning commissions and many of the members on the current commission also, if they recall, there was a lot of discussion on exactly what they want to see on South Street. And it was decided that along the Clinton River, they do not want to replicate what is happening on the other side of Main Street along Clinton River, where the Preserves 210 diversion and the River Place apartments are. This side was envisioned always as a research technology park. This was envisioned as a portion of the city that would be apt for development in a campus setting to support office and technological uses and have restaurants and other banks or these smaller retail or commercial uses that are in support of the research and tech-based uses, not standalone, creating a commercial district on the north side of South Street essentially takes away from the core downtown and the businesses that are in the downtown. The city wanted to keep focus for core commercial to remain with the city's downtown itself. And as such, South Street was envisioned as a research tech area with only commercial uses allowed that would be in support of the technology campus type of uses in there. That's the reason why the north side of South Street was viewed completely differently from any other mixed-use district, purely commercial uses or a mixed residential uses. And that's why the north side of South Street is along Clinton River is very different than what is along Clinton River on the west side of Main Street. So that is a little bit of background of where that research technology district even came from for the north part of South Street. I'll defer to Nick on the sidewalk sales retail component portion of it.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So Monday night, the City Council had a great discussion when we opened the door to look at a standard zoning ordinance text amendment. So we went over a little bit of the history that in the past when either residents, staff, or planning commission or city council thought there was something that was important to discuss, they would refer that formally back through a resolution to the planning commission, ask staff to work with the planning commission, with the city attorney to craft the beginning of a new ordinance text amendment. So that took place on Monday night to allow to look into ancillary retail sales. And I was not very good at talking about why we were struggling with this, which came down to a quick overview, if you will. So seems pretty simple to say just allow some places to do retail sales. The way our ordinance is presently structured is that we take each use within a building, and it has a parking count that's associated with. So industrial is the least. For every 1,500 square feet, you need one spot. For retail, it's 8.5 times more parking required. City Council and Planning Commission, actually, and our residents, we've been talking about not putting more impervious area down than we need to anywhere in town, which is water runoff, more parking space. So every time you put a parking space up, and this is, I know in the weeds, but you need 350 square feet of impervious area. When you get to a certain threshold, that might create a parking lot that now needs detention, that needs, you're paving up to an acre of lot, which is bad against everything we believe for environmentally, especially with the river right there, because there's a lot of direct runoff. But having said that, we're gonna look through other best practices. I believe that we're gonna come to a solution that says, if it truly is ancillary, maybe we pick a percentage, 25% of the building, 10% of the building can be ancillary retail sales. Because of the way the operations work, you don't have to put any more parking. We feel like the parking on the site would cover it during the day, hours of operation. Our goal is to not make anybody spend the money on more parking, yet be reasonable to make sure that we don't open that door up, unfortunately, to a lawsuit where we've had big commercial people come to South Street and say, I'll take that, I'll make up an example, for Gardner White to come down and make a store there. They were willing to build the parking lots, go ahead and do that. John Fox wanted to put massive storage of his cars down there. Again, pave more parking in the rear of those buildings against the back of the hill. So I think that we're gonna come to a conclusion. We told the city council that by the July meeting, your July meeting, we will have a draft for you. So Vidia and I and Jeff are working with Jeremy on that draft so we can try to minimize the impact on the businesses, yet minimize the impact on the environment. So I think it was great. City council gave us clear, I think we have 7 things they asked us to put into that ordinance to look at. We'll talk to the petitioners that have brought this to our attention, and I think we're gonna come to a conclusion.
Thanks. So it sounds like, to summarize, thank you, Vidya, for the context. I don't think there's at least 4 or 5 of us up here that were not here for that. So the context and background for South Street is really helpful. And then Nick, thank you, because I'm glad to hear that we're still working on it and there's a solution coming, or that we're working on it. So that's great. And everything you said makes sense. I'll go back to, the only thing is I want Woodward to not be light industrial. Thank you.
You're very
Thank you. I'm
welcome.
done.
You're very welcome. Are there any other comments? Mr. Kensick?
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Jackson. First of all, when you had all those individual meetings, was there like any one or any number of topics that people had some rather strong feelings that did not make it into the revisions?
Yeah. Let's see. There was some question about the property on Walnut, on the west side of Walnut, why that area was designated as transition at all, and why couldn't it be part of the downtown edge district? So there were people that expressed that concern, and so we explained, the rationale in the master plan, the fact that even though that area currently is part of the CBD, it's in its own special overlay, the Walnut Area Overlay District, and so really we're just creating a district that reflects the policies that have been in the zoning ordinance for years, as well as the future land use of the master plan. So there was some discussion about that. There was some discussion about South Street. Let's see. There were some property owners that had property on the north side of South Street that were concerned that the new RTEC designation would prevent their ability to expand their auto-related operations. Again, we said, we're sorry, this isn't the answer you're looking for, but this is the direction the city wants to go. There were some situations closer in the downtown area. The gas station in the corner, they were concerned how that was going to affect them. We explained that they were going to be in a special projects designation, which would allow them to come in. And they actually came into us with some images of possible long-term future development that they'd like to see on that site, that, just at high level, looked like it could meet the special projects tests, to be consistent with the gas station in the downtown, if you can imagine that. And then, yeah, there were definitely some other ones that we had discussions with, and some we had to, politely say, this is the direction that we're going. Others, we said there's other ways that their concerns can be addressed.
Okay, and then my second question is in regards to the property on Albertson. I'm assuming that because we don't see the Russells here, or not a larger contingent of residents.
see him.
He's here.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
right back there, yep.
Oh, we will hear from you then. My question was that, are most people there in agreement with the direction we're going? The residents and the Russells?
I don't know if we're gonna make everyone happy.
I know, I'm not expecting that.
The least unhappy, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Bachman, any questions?
Well, Commissioner Kenjuk took mine, so.
Your thunder.
We'll leave it there, but, and I think the residents can speak for themselves, and I appreciate your offering that. And a couple comments. Thank you, Vice Chairman, for expressing the gratitude to McKenna in particular, and everybody, to give the residents such an opportunity to address the concerns. And just speaking quickly to 322 Albertson, not to get ahead of my skis here, because we're probably going to talk about it more. There, a lot of people up here in the city administration had many conversations about this challenging issue, and there were several solutions that presented. And I think the one we have today checks the most boxes. I don't know that there's a perfect solution, but gives the property owners, it seems to me, an opportunity to properly market their property through the special projects designation. And the residents, certainly, you were heard loud and clear with the desire to keep it zoned R1. So I think this is a good solution. So thank you.
You're welcome. Madam Mayor?
Nothing else?
Mr. Hurden? Okay. Mr. Jackson, or maybe Vidya, if you could answer this question. A lot of discussion about special project, obviously, and the criteria. Can you just articulate for me and the public what the criteria is? My understanding is that it's the sustainability report that we came up with in 2018, but is it that, is it something else, or is it something completely different, or something combined?
It's more like all those things combined.
Okay.
So when someone comes in with a special projects request, they're typically asking for some flexibility with respect to the city's development standards. Okay, the range of uses, the setbacks, the building height, the landscaping, they're asking for some flexibility. Usually when people ask for that, they go to the ZBA and ask for a variance, right? But in that case, you're strictly looking at, is there a practical difficulty with them meeting the standards of the ordinance? So it's either a yes or no based on a practical difficulty. With the special projects, the test is, will the site be more of an asset to the city after the project is done? Are there benefits to the city for doing this project in granting the flexibility that they're requesting? So it may be reduction in setbacks in exchange for greater landscaping someplace. Or it might be sort of a modification of the building footprint in exchange for higher quality architecture. It might be building height, additional building height, but the upper story has to be set back further from the adjacent residential than it could under the underlying zoning. So it's a give and take process to get something that becomes an asset for the city, public benefit for the city after it's all said and done. The standards that are applied are spelled out in the zoning ordinance. It has to be compatible with the master plan. The policies in the master plan has to be compatible with adjacent uses. Can't any way infringe on future development of the surrounding properties, whether it's residential or non-residential. So there's a number of standards that Vidya would normally review and provide an assessment of in terms of whether they meet those or not. Ultimately, Planning Commission makes a recommendation on that, and then it goes to City Council.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Mayor?
Actually, I have a follow-up question on that, and I'm not sure if it's for you, John, or for city manager. So regarding financing, so if you are a property owner and it is zoned as a special project, so how does financing work for that if you want to sell it? What has our experience been? What have we seen in the past at the city?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My experience has been, a lot of it's in the condos, in par. So people would call, a mortgage lender would call and say, it's zoned R5, how do you have condos there, or the ice rink? And we let them know they went through a special projects. We send them the actual insert from the zoning ordinance that talks about the data, and then they just want the minutes of the meeting, that the PUD in some cases, RUD in some cases, was approved, and I've never heard it be rejected after that. That's my personal experience since I've been here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Jackson, I don't think there's any further questions for you. So again, thank you and your team very much for all the work that you did in making this informative and frankly understandable. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think at this time, what I would like to do is just open the floor up for public comment very briefly. If there's anyone here who would like to make a comment concerning what has been said, what has been discussed, certainly now is your opportunity. It's not compulsory or anything, but if you have a comment, now's the time. Mr. Russell, I cannot believe you're actually coming up here. How are you?
Can you imagine?
Yeah, who would have thunk it? How you doing?
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank the commission for the
Name.
Jeff Russell, member of Albertson LLC, 322, 326 Albertson, and resident at 345 Lysander.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Details are always not my strong suit. First, I want to thank the planning commission for all the work they've done. I really want to thank McKenna and John and the city administration for a lot of work that's been done on this very difficult site. So I'm just going to read through some prepared comments, and then I've attached the letter of April 30th with an approach that we thought would work. We did understand everything we needed to understand, I think, at the bottom line. It'll show as I go through this. So, to begin, Albertson LLC, we are disappointed that the city administration has recommended the parcels continue to be zoned R1, not light industrial. We request the parcels be zoned light industrial with special project designation. The supporting facts for light industrial: the 2022 master plan and its future use map calls for the property to be zoned LI with special project designation. That decision of the Planning Commission resulted from review of the existing environmental conditions of the property and the inability to achieve residential remediation standards. In Michigan, master plans are intended to address land use, infrastructure issues for 7 to 15 years. Zoning ordinances ideally include provisions for elimination of nonconforming uses. Nonconforming zoning can offer some benefits, like grandfathering existing uses. But it also introduces complexity and potential drawbacks that can affect property insurance and purchase financing because they are deemed at higher risk. Also, nonconforming buildings carry an increased risk of total loss if they're damaged more than 50%. We disagree with the statement that the city planner's recommendation that the unique challenges, specifically a nonconforming industrial building, nonconforming uses, irregular shaped site, and environmental constraints lend themselves to R1 residential zoning. On the contrary, these facts all lead to support for light industrial zoning with a special project designation. It astounds me the city would enact zoning for a parcel that is impossible for the site to conform with, thereby creating and perpetuating a nonconformance. In the 1980s, the city's decision makers did not have the information we now possess when they changed the zoning from I1 to R1. Today, we have more data and knowledge of the exact scope of the environmental problem that makes it impossible to achieve R1 residential remediation. And still, the city chose to zone the property to a use it can never attain. Further, we are disappointed that the city administration chose not to incorporate our April 30 letter and our request for LI with special project zoning with a statement of conditions that added restrictions to the uses of the property as part of the city's zoning amendment process. The April 16th meeting that Mayor Salvia facilitated with Nick Banda, Jeff Crott, John Jackson, Jeff and Kim Russell, and Commissioner Hauser by phone, purpose was to learn about what Albertson was willing to propose and chart the steps forward. At the end of our meeting, we thought that a restricted statement of conditions could be offered and included in this zoning amendment process, but we were mistaken. We wish to thank City Attorney Crott for clarifying this in his May 15th reply to our May 14th email to John Jackson, that the city could not consider the statement of conditions as part of the current zoning amendment process. Our April 30th letter that included our offer to the restricted statement of conditions as part of the current city's process was to meet all parties' concerns, and eliminate the need to reinvent the wheel and go through all this a second time. During your May 5th meeting, we asked for our April 30th letter and statement of conditions to be included in the June 2nd packet. We understand the city determined that they could not be used as part of the ongoing process and hence weren't included. However, we are providing them this evening to the Planning Commission so that you can understand the extent we have worked to try and support your 2022 master plan decision of LI with special project designation. Finally, thank you for recommending the special project designation for the parcels. I agree the special project designation is a critical tool for future development of such a challenging site. Finally, thank you for your time and effort in the zoning of our parcels. We ask for these comments and our April 30th letter and statement of conditions to the Planning Commission to be entered into the public record this evening, and we look forward to discussion of the zoning of these parcels after it's all said and done in the future when we come back with some proposals. And thank you so much for all your time. Thank you for all your efforts. Everybody and my neighbors have done a really good job in having a robust and excellent discussion. So thank you very much, and I'll turn that over to Jeremy, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Linda Gamage, and I live at 333 Greg Street, adjacent to we're directly behind the 322 and 326 parcels. And I just wanted to clarify one thing about what was put up here. If you can go back one slide, it says 322, and I just wanted to ask if this is 322 and 326?
It's both those parcels.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And also, I just, I'm unaware of the things that have been discussed about that parcel previously. I was also hoping to see the letter that was proposed and sent to the Planning Commission. I also just want to say that with these special overlay designations and considerations for special projects, it really does mean that the Planning Commission needs to not only look out for the property owner, but also for the community, and needs to really advocate for the community and what is best overall. In this property in particular, with its direct adjacency to several residences, also the trail, also public space. The public space and the trail don't have built-in advocates for them. So if you go with a zoning that allows any special project to be proposed, really the advocacy for the community surrounding it falls on the Planning Commission. And I just want to say up front that I really hope, I'm certain that the Planning Commission members who sit here before me are very diligent about those considerations. My concern is future Planning Commission members and what other concerns might be brought before them. You know, we just don't know what other concerns will be before those people. So I just want to say thank you for advocating for our community, and I hope that you continue to, especially with special projects where there really kind of are no rules.
Thank you. Anyone else? Video, anyone online by chance?
There's no one online, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, thank you for those who came up and spoke. I guess, Mr. City Manager, I would ask maybe for a little bit of direction on how you want us to handle this. Is it a motion to approve the zoning changes that are provided for in our packet then?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, you heard the city manager, and obviously it's now up for discussion on our part and whether or not we want to move forward with the proposal to change the zoning ordinance or the zoning map consistent with what was in our packet.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms.
Just
Murphy.
super quick, with the regard to South Street, what is if we vote on this right now, is that's like gonna addendum extra thing that
Let's-
will come later.
Let's clarify what we're talking about South Street, because there was two issues. One is the discussion we've had about ancillary sales for certain businesses, and then the other one is for maybe considering in the future a mixed-use development where right now it would be the research technology area. So my understanding is that ancillary sale issue is not up for discussion right now. That was just a heads up, hey, in July, you're gonna be presented with some ordinance amendment language. For here, my view, and Mr. Bandit, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that's not up for discussion right now. It would be something that we could always discuss in the future. I think Mr. Jackson said maybe it makes sense to have a little bit more of some programming and some studying and some looking into how we would want to develop South Street in the future. Now, again, very quickly, our master plan is going to be redone in 2 years, right? So it's probably makes sense to pause it and then make that part of the conversation. I know it doesn't, I don't want to make it sound like we're kicking the can, but at the same time, it probably makes sense to make that part of the conversation that we're going to get started probably in about a year.
Yeah.
That's just my, Mr. Bandit, did I say anything incorrectly?
No, sir.
Okay. Did that
For
answer your question?
clarification, yes, I was just concerned about the forthcoming ordinance language, and if we approve this, can we, I mean, that doesn't change the zoning.
That's correct,
Until
yes.
the thing.
That's a completely separate issue that we'll
Okay.
deal with in July.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Mr. Kenzick.
Yeah, I have I guess, a follow-up question, and I may be oversimplifying things, but the fact that the Albertson property is going to have the designation of special project, does it really matter whether it's industrial or residential, if it's going to be also designated as special project?
To the residents.
Yeah, it matters because if it's industrial, they could come in with a request for any use that's allowed in the industrial district by right.
Okay.
And the city may not even get a chance to review it.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Mr. Bandit, I have I'm sorry, did you have any other questions? I
that's-
didn't mean to interrupt you. On a procedural matter, for special project, just refresh my recollection, if it comes in to planning commission for special project, it also has to go to city council.
That's correct. So about 5 or 6 years ago, it used to be, planning commission made a recommendation to city council. City council made a recommendation to accept or deny the recommendation of planning commission, then kicked it back to the planning commission. There's a big discussion about our elected officials should be the one that have that. They would be responsible for making the final decision. The ordinance was amended through the process, and now it's planning commission one time, recommendation to council, council final say.
And that was to the resident, my question, to make sure that it's not just a planning commission that would review special project use, it also is finalized by your elected officials on city council. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Ms. Clausen?
So like I commented earlier, can we make amendments to this so we can, just like any other proposal that comes forward? Okay. So I would like to add an amendment that the Woodward Light Industrial changes the parcels on Woodward that are now marked light industrial in the proposal, change to mixed use. It sounds like residential isn't appropriate, but for all the reasons, again, that we don't want industrial in Albertson, I don't think we want these isolated industrial spaces in these neighborhoods on Woodward either, by the park and all that stuff. I feel very strongly about this, and I would recommend an amendment to the proposal.
Okay, so Mr. Bain, I was just going to say, so we would need a motion to make an amendment to change the proposed zoning from light industrial to mixed use for those properties in question. I don't have the addresses in front of me, unfortunately.
I know which parcels they are.
Okay.
I would like clarification on that. Are we including Mr. C's or just the other sliver of gray?
I would say all the light industrial. I don't think light industrial is appropriate at all. So it'd be the car wash, right? That's Mr. C's. That's all one thing, and then there's like a almost exact same strip, but it's got like 4 parcels on it.
That would be class action, the clean.
Eagles,
car guy,
DPW.
The Eagles, DPW stays the same.
And the car wash.
The car wash. Yeah, they're not special.
Right.
All right, so just to be clear, for record-keeping purposes, and Mr. Peckins, since you're the scrivener, there's a motion to make an amendment to change the zoning on those properties in question on Woodward. It's from industrial to mixed use. Did I say that correctly, Ms. Clausen?
Correct.
Okay.
And I make that motion.
You just made that motion. And
I
so
just don't want to repeat everything you just said. You got it right.
And so the question now is there support for the motion made by Ms. Clauser to amend that particular area?
Can we ask for a clarification? Not the DPW yard.
Not the DPW, right. It's the areas in gray on that proposed map. If you want to put the map up, would that help you, gentlemen? And lady, yes.
The DPW is in gray, it is light industrial.
It is, but I think in the future land use
Orange.
map,
It's orange.
It's orange on ours. Yep, let's pull it up to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. I want to make certain that we're consistent.
I think it's great.
In the future land use map that was in our packet, the DPW building is orange.
Oh, the future land use plan.
Yep.
you're, Nancy, you're looking at the proposal, which is, you're right.
It's
The
in the
future land use.
proposed.
It's blue, yep, yep.
Isn't that orange? Isn't that DPW?
Yep, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
orange.
so I'm saying all the light industrial should be.
Okay, so the area on Wilcox here, that gray, Jeremy, if you could do it where where that is, and then skip the baseball field, and then that's Mr. C's car wash. So, Ms. Clauser, your proposal is to amend the zoning from light industrial to mixed use in those two gray areas on either side of J.C. Field there.
Yes,
So
that is.
maybe I asked the
Hold on.
question, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Banda.
So we did not notify people of that change. That's, we took, everybody else that got proposed rezoning changes, we said them a notice and 300 feet around their self.
So it would have to be noticed.
We can notify them prior to the city.
Correct.
We could do that.
Can I clarify though? So the way you have it right now, it's not changing. Today, it is zoned light industrial. So what you've put up here is light industrial. Those are not changing. What is in the future land use map would change it
Well, that would be rezoned to the new.
to the mixed
Mixed use,
use.
right, so
That would
it
be a
is rezoned.
change. Yes, yep, correct. Okay, just making sure.
Okay,
We can
so-
notify prior to the city
Right.
council meeting.
So from a procedural standpoint, this may be, for all intents and purposes, and I say this word politely, defective procedure because you have to provide notice, correct, if you're going to change that?
But you can provide notice between now, as long as there's 15 days notice before the public hearing at city council.
Okay.
You're okay.
All right, so before we get there, though, we have to prove, or we have to make a motion to show that there's support for that, correct? And right now, we just have a motion. So is there support for the motion? Because this may be a moot point if there's not support. So is there support for the motion?
I would support it for the same reason. If all the area that is planned to be residential is going to end up abutting light industrial, and then it's kind of, you end up in the same place where we currently have been with the Albertson property. So I would support it for that reason, for consistency, but also if you do have homeowners adjacent to those properties, it's going to come back, I think.
Madam Mayor?
So discussion on the motion?
Yes,
So we have-
discussion on the motion, yes, so we have support. Yep.
So I don't support this change, and I want to explain my reason why. Looking at these parcels, thinking about the businesses that are there, if we were to change this to a mixed use, to me, that puts developers' eyes on these sites of, hey, what else could I put there? And I feel like the uses, the businesses, the entities that are there fit in with the community, and they fit in with even the developments that are already approved. Understand it's industrial, and we're kind of moving away from these pockets of industrial, but I don't want to draw attention to make that into something else, because they're good entities, what's happening there. So I will not support this.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Mr. Bachman, go ahead, please.
just a couple points. I appreciate, Commissioner Clauser, you're bringing this up. I was very interested in the discussion, and I think more discussion is warranted, and I'd be happy to take part in that. I'm very uncomfortable with the limited discussion we've had tonight. There's a lot of unknowns in my mind, to move forward with an action like this. I think also, the property owners, it's procedurally okay that we didn't give notice, I get that, but still, it's in a matter of fairness, that these property owners didn't have the same opportunity to come here tonight and voice their concern. So I think, like Mayor Salvi, I would also not support the motion, but I would love to continue the discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'll just second what
Mr. Harden,
Commissioner
go ahead.
Blackman said.
Okay. I would concur with my colleagues, and probably I would echo the same exact thing that Mr. Bachman said is, I agree, I'm all for having a conversation on these particular parcels. I think there's nothing wrong with talking about it, but because of the timeliness and the notice, I think I'm such a stickler for making sure that everyone has an opportunity to know what's going on in a timely manner. I wouldn't even want to touch this from that perspective. So I would say I would support it for that, just from a procedural issue, but I certainly would have a conversation on it about this and any other parcel in the city.
Can I just make one follow-up comment? So that's fine. I will say I am disappointed because I made this comment the very first time we saw this map. I've emailed 3 times to the city about this, so I have brought it up, and I don't know where we have dialogue. And so I am just stumped a little with this one because it's not consistent with the master plan. Everything else is. So I don't understand why we're okay with this one being different than what we're doing everywhere else. And like I said, I'm just disappointed because I do feel like I've brought it up for weeks now, months, I mean.
Okay, so I guess if we'll have to do the roll, yeah, because there's support. So Mr. Packins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
No.
Salvia,
No.
Bachman,
No.
Clauser,
Yes.
Harden,
No.
Kenjuk,
No.
Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion fails, does not pass, so we were back to the initial issue before us, is there a motion to approve the zoning changes that were presented in the packet as presented, without any amendments?
Are we waiting for?
I don't know,
There's a discussion
it's a
happening.
discussion, so I will take a 10-minute timeout here. Mr. Jackson, do you have a comment or anything, or no?
No, not really.
Okay, all right. That's a kind of you're not going to say anything. Okay, so is there a motion for approval of the zoning changes as presented in the packet?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Kenzik has made the motion. Is there support?
I will support,
Madam Mayor supports. Is there?
and
I'm sorry.
and then I also want to discuss. So
Absolutely.
since I have the floor, I'll
Okay,
discuss.
Floor is yours.
So I think echoing Commissioner Dan, I like that, Commissioner Dan's comments regarding the Albertson site, it's a tough site. And so I think it checks the boxes. It also, to me, we've acknowledged that it provides the owner opportunity to sell and get financing, and I want to make sure we're providing that flexibility. And the special project, the use of the special project is important. That's kind of Rochester, it's kind of a little unique to Rochester, and it seems like that's the right fit for it. Regarding the other changes, to me, they're appropriate, they make sense, and I agree with them. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Additional comments or discussion amongst the commissioners? Mr. Bachman?
Maybe a comment and a question maybe for you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Do we need to address I think it was Laura Gamage? Oh, excuse me, Linda Gamage, thank you. I think she mentioned, she had a question about the property numbers. Is that a clerical thing we need to correct on this document?
Mr. Peckins, will the record reflect that it's both property?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then, I guess just to add to my previous comment on the Albertson property, I think Mr. Russell gave some very good points, and in the past, there's a very compelling argument I think both sides have. And I think the key takeaway for me was the desire for the property owners to secure financing for the purpose of a sale. And as I understand it, through all these potential solutions that have come up, is the special projects designation is really the only one that allows the the current use to become legally conforming, thereby allowing for financing to occur, or a bank to be willing to finance. So that was a key aspect. The residents clearly, found it important to voice their concern and keep it residential. I had a really hard time with keeping it residential with the idea that it's impossible to make it residential, but I suppose I'm open to the idea that someday it might be financially feasible or qualify at some point for brownfield grants to actually get that done and make it practically remediated. But I think, to Ms. Gamage, your point is, the special projects is the opportunity for the residents, so please stay engaged. This is your opportunity to retain control and put those limitations that Mr. Russell was so willing to provide through some other potential solutions. So we look forward to that discussion.
Thank you. And I would just echo my colleagues as well, is that, it's hard because you have compelling arguments on both sides, and you have compelling stories, and you want to make the right decision. And I think we reached the right decision based on a dialogue between all the stakeholders, Mr. and Mrs. Russell, the residents, and more importantly, the city planners and the city administration made themselves available. And I want to believe that everyone who wanted to have a conversation about this issue was heard. Everyone who had a question about this issue was responded to, and when we walk out of here tonight, all the cards were facing up. And so I feel confident that everyone had an opportunity to say what was on their mind. They may not necessarily have liked the answer. They may not necessarily have loved what was told to them. But at the end of the day, they got a straight answer and were told, hey, this is how we're proceeding, and we're going to move forward from there. So thank you very much. Without that, Mr. Peckins, we did the roll already, yeah, so we're done.
No, we do the roll call.
Oh, we do the roll, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we were talking about support. Okay, the roll, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It moves to city council.
Moves to city council, so.
We go through it again.
We'll get to do this all over again. And will there be notice sent out again for city council residents? Okay, so you'll get another letter in the mail from your city government saying, hey, show up at the city council meeting, okay? But thank you, everyone. Everyone, thank you very much, okay? All right, moving on. Sorry, I've got to scroll back to my agenda here. Okay, so 6B, this is consideration of 210 Diversion Street. This is a special project and site plan review request for a public hearing. Mr. Peckins.
Sorry, I was getting.
No, that's
Lydia's
fine.
face up
That's
on
fine.
screen.
Thank you. I was missing her.
How are you?
She was hidden behind the map.
Vidya, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So the request before you tonight is from 210 Diversion. If the Planning Commission recollects, this is a project that received special projects approval from the City Council in March of 2024 for the construction of a 4-story, 21-unit multiple-family residential building. So this site is located on the south side of Diversion, where the street goes east from First Street. So the project went through the entire process of special projects the first time around. They appeared before the Planning Commission, preliminary hearing, set for public hearing. Planning Commission reviewed it, made a recommendation to City Council. City Council held a public hearing, and then City Council took the final action. So during the process of designing their construction documents and getting ready to build, the applicant made some changes to the plan and submitted it to the city as minor changes to the site plan itself. However, when I reviewed the plan, I found that the changes were not minor, because the first time it was presented was as the size of the balconies being extended by 1 feet. But the plan that I took a look at not only extended the size of the balcony, it also ended up splitting a single-story, 1 garage building, detached garage building, into 2 detached garage buildings. It eliminated the dumpster enclosure that was on the original plan map. So what you see on your screen on the left side is the original approved special projects for March 2024. What you see to the right is what they're proposing at this time as an amendment. So the changes that we noted, they're significant. It was that the building, detached building split into two, the dumpster enclosure got eliminated, a new narrow gap was created between the two buildings, trash removal was moved to the inside of the building, in addition to all the balconies and all being made bigger. So this is an amendment to a special project. In discussion with Attorney Krug, the zoning ordinance does not specifically say what process needs to be followed for an amendment to a special project. So it was our determination in discussions with Attorney Krug that an amendment to a special project needs to follow through with the exact same process as the original special project, which is appear before the Planning Commission, public hearing, recommendation to City Council, and City Council makes the final decision once again. So at this point of time, the main features of the amendment that the applicant is seeking is the single-story, 2,983 square foot detached garage building is now replaced by 2 detached garage buildings with a total area of 3,215 square feet. So that's an increase of about 250 square feet in building footprint and area. Now this trash enclosure, as I previously mentioned, has been eliminated. There is a new 8-foot wide landscape areas between the two buildings. The site was approved for 8 interior parking spaces. If you recollect, you enter the lower level of the building from this access port, and there are 8 parking spaces over here. That remains consistent on the new plan also. However, the number of exterior spaces that are shown over here was reduced by 1, and that 1 exterior space is now incorporated as an enclosed garage space. The balconies on the west side, on the south side, and the north side have all been increased by 1 feet per the applicant for better flow and usage. The elevator shaft that is there on this building was increased 1.83 feet above the flat roof height for clearance requirements. That is likely a building code requirement that the applicant had to comply with. So there is an additional projection of 1.83 feet above the approved building height. And finally, the south elevation of this garage itself building was changed to provide different type of ventilation. When I show the elevations, I will show you what it looks like. The questions we had for the applicant, which I will defer to the applicant to answer tonight, is extending the balcony by 1 feet technically now makes the balcony encroach on the property to the west. The property to the west is part of the preserves, which is also a special project. The preserves was approved at the exact same time as 210 diversion, and the applicant owns both properties. At the time of approval, the Planning Commission and City Council had granted an easement across the preserves for planting of landscape screening for all of these mechanical units that are there on the west side of the building. But at this time, with the balconies, they are technical building encroachment onto the property of the preserves. Now, the plan notes that the balcony to the north is also being increased by 1 feet, but I want the applicant to explain how that is, because at the time of approval, the balcony was already 0.2 feet from the front property line. By increasing it by 1 feet, it is technically going to encroach into the city-owned right-of-way. And the City Council has approved landscape improvements within the right-of-way, not building encroachments. My next concern is regarding how trash removal will work. I do understand from the floor plan that there is a trash chute and a trash room in here, and the applicant has noted that trash trucks will come into the site. I'm going to the sheet that shows the truck circulation plan. The applicant notes that trash trucks will drive into the site, pick up the trash from the dumpster will be rolled out from inside the building. The trash truck will pick up the trash and it will leave the site. It's going to be the same as before. However, that's not true, because earlier the trash enclosure was at this corner. a trash truck would come all the way, pick up from the dumpster unit, reverse onto this opening, and then make the turn movement to exit the site. That was the trash removal plan. That was our understanding when the original plan was approved. At this time, with the detached garage building going all the way to the end, a trash truck that is coming here parking to pick up trash will essentially have to reverse back onto diversion in order to make its exit, unless the applicant can show how their turn movements can be accomplished within the site itself. I wanted the applicant to explain to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission why the balcony sizes have been increased from the original approval. And we had also asked for colored renderings of the garage building, which the applicant will provide to you tonight at your meeting, which we have not seen previously. We had also asked the applicant to provide a complete summary of all the changes from the original approved site plan and landscape plan by putting the two plans side by side and comparing them, because it will give the Planning Commission a clear idea of what are the changes based upon which the amendment is being requested. So the public benefit that was offered by 210 diversion remains unchanged at this time. And the public benefit for refreshing the Planning Commission was that they will be providing a sidewalk connection along diversion extending to the overpass, allowing for access to Main Street via the new stairway. These are new loft-style apartments that contribute to pedestrian traffic and customers to downtown business. And they also contributes to the tax base and provides for a visually appealing site in a very challenging location. So those are the public benefits that were originally proposed and that remain unchanged at this time. But with the proposed amendment, the applicant is before you tonight, seeking to explain the need for the amendment, answer the questions. If the Planning Commission is satisfied with the answers provided by the applicant, you can schedule it for a public hearing at your next available agenda, subject to all of the items that are noted in our review letter being addressed. Or the Planning Commission can choose to ask for additional information before setting it for a public hearing. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Vidya, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for Vidya? None? Is the applicant here?
Joe Lochurko, 202 Walnut.
Mr. LaChurco, how you doing?
Great.
Good.
So,
You tell us about these changes you made?
absolutely.
All right.
So, you know, once we had the approval, then we had to go through structural, engineering with the city. And so we had, meeting people to say, hey, what do you think of a 5-foot balcony? And, it was kind of funny what people said. They said, useless, can't do anything. And to be clear, it's 1 foot, 6 inches we're adding on the west side. And in talking to this, the city attorney said, well, I don't know if you can do that in an easement. So I said, well, we will buy the property from the preserves next door and do that. City engineer also wanted a larger easement than the 5-foot easement that was previously approved. They wanted an 8.5-foot easement. No problem, we can do that. So what I was gonna do is I put this kind of together. It's in the same manner that we had before. And let's see, that's all. It'll take a second.
Take your time.
It's loading.
It'll load up.
So to the right, it's showing the fire truck, how it enters into the building and it backs straight up the fire truck. To the left, it's showing the garbage truck coming in and being able to turn and then turn out of the building. And this is something that Nowak and Fraus, our civil engineer, put together. And this will go to city council if it's approved here. And it'll go to your city engineers and they can verify that these diagrams are, correct. Now the trash chute, when we did the trash chute, we had that set and the comment was, are you in the trash business? And I said, what do you mean in the trash business? So everybody that lives in the unit is gonna take their garbage take it to the elevator, go to an outside garbage enclosure that's near the woods and throw it into that for anything to happen during the night. So, and they said, where do you recycle? I said, well, that's a good question. So we came up with an inside trash chute that you go next to the elevator, open up a door, put the garbage in, it falls to an area in the building where then the garbage company comes out, rolls the dumpster out, collects it, turns around, leaves, and it also has recycling that's able to happen. So we got rid of that trash chute, or we added the trash chute, got rid of the dumpster, and when we did that, we added a garage, and then when looking at it, we were saying, wow, this building is, I don't know how long it is, a couple hundred feet. If we broke it up, it would look much better than having one continuous building, so we did that. Something else that happened here that was nice, we have 2 barrier-free units, or parking spaces here on the outside, and we also have one inside the parking garage. So the number of parking spots did not change. So then as we were going through this, we did the landscaping. The landscaping kind of all worked out, not much change in trees. What we took out where the trash enclosure was, we added in between the buildings. The photometrics stayed the same. Height of the building didn't change, the units didn't change, square footage didn't change on the building. So we came up with 6.5 feet for the balconies. Part of it was these lower units that are like a garden style unit. If you had a 5-foot unit, you have a 1-foot concrete wall, so you had 4 feet. That is really tight to have a 4-foot balcony. So those will end up being 5.5 feet. The upper units will be 6.5 feet. You can put a table, you can put 2 chairs. You can put a lounge chair. It's a little bit more comfortable for people that are living there. Yeah, and the north one, Vidya had a great point. Yeah, so we're not changing that. That's gonna stay at the 5-foot that was approved. This one over here, it's inside the building property line. We made it 3 feet. Thought that would be a spectacular balcony to have 8-foot by 22 feet of balcony. Then as we go through, this is what was originally approved, and these are the changes. So the balcony increased, and when we increased them, we added a little window here. This is the elevator that came through, and that was for height requirement that the elevator required. Previously there was a leg here that came down on the 210. That was actually when we went through engineering, it was encroaching into the sidewalk, so we got rid of it, extended the balcony all the way across, so those were 2 changes. Then when you do structural engineering, we had the windows here into the lobby area, and we needed to put a break in between them structurally to get the steel to work. And then this is the garbage doors that would open up and hold the recycling and the garbage. Other changes that happened here, originally we had the canopy up top, and when we talked to the truss company, it needed to become a little bit wider. So what did that go to? Yeah, so it got about 6, maybe 8 inches wider, but the trusses to get that cantilever needed to get wider. Now, something we still want to do is keep these openings, even though we didn't extend these. We think that's kind of a nice look on the balconies. And then a couple of these doors, I think this door right here and this door, they were shown as little bit shorter right here, and we wanted to make all the doors the same same size. So on the front of the building, oh, and also we had this window right here, didn't belong. It was in the hallway, and it ended up falling in between units, so we got rid of it. And so that's where you get this right here. So for the most part, we try to keep the look of the building the same. We had little changes that we had to make on the side of the building. Same thing, it's showing this balcony over here, the canopy, the elevator. And then on the garage side, we had two large openings. And when we went through structural engineering, they said to make things work better, 3 openings would be better than 2 openings. Once again, this is the balconies going from 5 foot to 6.5 feet. Color renderings, the look of the building is to stay the same. This is the north side. And then this is facing the bridge, the address. This is what the garage looks like now. There's 3 2-car garages, and then we added that single-car garage. The look of the garages stay the same. We just broke them up into 2 buildings. Yeah, instead of having one large building, it was nicer to have 2 buildings. But the look of the building is the same, all brick. It just has, those are the 3 garage openings instead of the 2 garage openings, and the larger balconies. And we didn't lose any parking. We still have the same amount of parking spaces. And these right here are the gutter downspouts that are coming down from the roof. So in the process of this, you come up with special projects. So you spend a ton of money, because I've done this a couple times, on a special project, which is a great tool that you have. Because as a developer, it allows a lot of communication, a lot of input, and you end up with a better product. And that's what I think happened here, that we started with a good product. We go through, structural engineers have ideas, city engineers have ideas, and we, kind of go through everything, and then you start talking to potential customers, and they ask you questions, and you go, that's a great idea, didn't really think of that. And so now we're at the point where we have the project, structural engineering done, we're kind of complete. So when this came back, I was hoping that this was something that could be changed, but I get it, special project is just that, special project, and you gotta go through. So I'm here tonight to present this. This we got done right away. This way, this will go to the Planning Commission. It's a different pack than what you have, but I wanted you to have it. This way, everybody has it, can go through it, see the changes that are made. I think they're improvements, and get this approved to City Council so we can get working on it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Bain, did you have any comments? No? Okay.
Sure.
Oh, yes, Mr. Peckins, I'm sorry.
So this specific packet video has not seen. This was submitted digitally on Friday, and I'll be getting physical copies for video to review from July, if that is the date that is set for the public hearing.
So, thank you.
Yeah, so these specific ones have not been seen by video.
And to the extent, Mr. LaChurco, these drawings that Vidia has not seen yet, are any of these iterations responsive to her questions?
Every single one to a T. And then one other thing I would put for a special, in doing engineering, we are going to 182 feet of water main will be improved by us. That is the city water main, a 12-inch water main. I know, everyone gets excited.
No, no, if you're on the asset management
Yes,
meeting,
we are
you
excited.
are thrilled.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
I'm sorry, that's like Christmas
And then,
Day.
you know, there was little things, like we had to get another easement because where the tap was, it was the, anyways. There's so much detail that happens then when you do structural engineering, civil engineering to the city, because the AEW is very thorough.
Seal's
And so-
talking to you.
She's talking to me right now.
So
Yes.
I want to ask you a quick question, then I'm going to let everyone else talk and get that out. But I just have a quick question. With respect to the size of the balconies.
Yes.
And the enlargement and then the encroachment, can you clarify for me which balconies and which elevations they are?
Sure. It's
Okay.
the west balconies.
The west side?
Yep, the west side. And then it'll be well, the south side doesn't encroach onto anybody's property, just we extended it on our own property.
Okay.
So I'll show you.
But on the west side, it would encroach across the property line, correct? It would break the plan.
Correct. And we had an easement, so the thought was, we could just encroach it into the easement, and then the city attorney says, I don't think you can't do that. And then we had a discussion, and then he said, how do you get the mortgage to sign off on it?
Correct,
And I
'cause you
said,
have
well, that's a
encroachment.
great idea. I didn't think of that. So we will acquire, if this goes through, 1.5 feet, so we're not encroaching.
So the acquirement of the adjacent property, you're going to buy 18 inches?
Correct.
Right? And will that be consolidated into this parcel?
It will be.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to sell that 18 inches
No.
independent of its own?
No.
Okay.
And there would be an 8.5 foot easement for landscaping and egress that would also,
On the west side?
on the west side, that would
Okay.
also go along with this property.
Okay.
And currently, it was approved at 5 foot.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I don't have, well, I have more questions, but I'm going to
Well,
open
and
it up.
I'll show you the balconies, for instance. So here is the 5 foot balcony, right? On the north side, and that's not changing. This is the balcony we're making on the south side. That is 8.5 feet, but the property line is to here, so we're not encroaching into any property. And then here, this is the balcony that is 6.5 feet on the
West side.
west side. And since the sun kind of goes down on the west side, there's no need to put any openings on the side. Kind of wanted to keep it private between units and balconies, where on the other side, you don't have a neighbor that's next to you, and you kind of get the feeling that it opens it up a little bit more. So that's why we put the openings on the north side and south side.
All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Okay, commissioners, I'd like to open it up to other questions if there are any. Anyone on, Madam Mayor?
I have a couple of questions. So thank you for coming back. I know no one wants to go through this special project process twice. So I appreciate your positive spin on this. So one, I'm very curious to hear engineering's comments regarding the trash flow there. I'm happy that you're looking to add recycling. That's really important. But, you know, we cannot have a trash truck backing up on the street there. That would not work. So that is very important, that we
Sure.
prove the feasibility of that. Two other questions. One is regarding the public benefit. I think in the packet it said there had been no change to that. Do any of those pictures that you put up there give us any more visuals around that, or can you speak to that?
No, I mean, the public benefit was the sidewalk, but then a new public benefit is when we went to tap the water main or look at that, it was that water main needs to be updated. So we are volunteering to update that 182 feet of water main.
Okay, so that would be reflected in our Sustainable Rochester scoring. And then the last comment I have is on the elevator shaft, the height above the roof line. So 1.5 feet, I'm just wondering from a visual, from an appearance, is there, that will be viewable from surrounding buildings. Is there any greening or any consideration to that?
So, interesting, so when we did this building, I did not want to have anything sticking up through the roof, because it bothered me that you can see so many things coming over so no vents, no dryers, no kitchen hoods, nothing. Mechanical units, nothing on the roof. But when we got to the elevator company and the codes, they require this, and it's either make the entire building taller, which doesn't really make sense, or you have a completely flat roof and you have a little bump up that actually probably adds a little interest to, at a certain point, maybe having it completely flat isn't the right look to have, and having a bump up is not a bad look. So that was, I tried my darndest.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions over there? No? Mr. Kenzik?
Yes, I have two. Regarding the trash chute and the collection inside, I think everyone can recognize that over time, that brings up a new problem, namely smell and what have you. I know this isn't really part of our process, but are there any plans to make sure that room stays clean?
Well, absolutely. So you can see right here are the double doors. And then here is the trash chute room right here. And we did this completely from the basement up. We added normally you just have the stair tower and the elevator tower being block. We continued the block going all the way around it just for that reason. So it's block, and we'll enamel that block. And so it's, so smell doesn't get into the block. And then that is the trash chute. This is the container. You're able to have the doors right at the elevator, so someone can open up the doors here and use it for recycling. The garbage truck would pull up here. The mouse would pull up here, open up the doors. There's an open space for them to take the container out, load it up, then it comes forward, backs up into here, and then pulls out.
Okay.
And the engineer looked at it. I had him look at it twice and said, yes, it does work.
Okay.
And that's how it was getting out before, because you have the 24 feet and then you have 20 feet into the building. So without having to go into the building, you could make that turn. But yes, having it be right there, it'll be cleaned, every couple months, sprayed down. We'll have water in there, but would not let that smell.
Okay. And then the second question I have is regarding the space between the two garages. If I recall, those garages back into a rather steep grade, and a portion of that back wall is actually covered by the grade?
Yes.
Okay. By splitting the building, how do you control that?
That wall continues.
Oh, that wall will continue?
That back wall continues, and then and then there's the green space in front of it, yep.
Which, in respect to the green space, there was a mention of doing some kind of landscaping in there, but that area, for all practical purposes, is going to be all full of shade. You won't get much sunlight.
If I'm not mistaken, we did put a tree in there. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, the landscape plan does show a tree in that area.
I think that's it.
No, this is, existing trees. Yeah, I can't see it, but yeah, I believe there's a tree.
I guess my question is it really appropriate to landscape that tiny area, or would it be better to do something different? And I don't have a suggestion on what that might be, but I just don't think something's gonna survive long-term.
Well, Jim's not here, but he's also a landscape architect, and the Noack and Frous, they re-looked at it, and they're the ones that put the tree. I can't get anything to seem to grow, so I'm not the person to do that, but if they tell me it goes, we'll plan it
All right.
and see how it
Fair enough.
goes.
He's got more qualifications than I do, so.
Mr. Kenzik, any further questions?
No.
Okay. Any other questions down there to my right? Mr. Bachman?
I suppose maybe just a couple. Nothing in here is going to slow up your progress, right? This process, going through this again? You're going to continue to make progress on the site? Is that correct?
Well, if we get approval, and then I think next month we go to city council, and we will continue to keep finishing up engineering and structural, so having it slows us up a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah. So this is, it was a lot of work to kind of redo this, and I was thinking a lot of this was just kind of things that happen, you know, if I would have known that changing 2 openings to 3 openings would be something, you know, I was originally thinking the balconies and the balconies and the dumpster were the 2 big changes. And those were considerable, you know, changes to the facade of the project. And then all the other little things were just happened during structural and engineering and so on. But all those added up bring us here, so we get through them. Let's, you know, if it's something that makes it a better project, I'm all for it.
All right, so time is of the essence. I think you're well ahead of schedule from what you expressed to the commission a little over a year ago, so we thank you for that. I missed who called about the 5-foot balcony useless. Was it like prospective residents or city engineer? I missed that part.
One of them's a good friend of mine that lives in Toronto, has I was just up there this weekend, we measured it, 4'10". He has 2 little chairs, and that's all that fits on it. And so, and then in asking people, what is a good balcony size? And then I chat GTP.
Well, there you have it.
There you go. And ask other people, and they say, no, I mean, 5-foot balconies, you look at balconies that people have, and they just have a chair on them. Now, the nice thing is these are balconies that are facing west, so it's kind of nice that they're private. They're facing out to the west of the, towards the preserves, a lot of woods, and it's kind of nice. You could have a sunset and have a table, 2 chairs, have a nice dinner.
Good, thank you. And I've watched enough crime TV to have an irrational fear of garbage chutes. So I don't know if there's anything we should be thinking about in terms of safety, all kidding aside. And we don't have to address it now, but maybe something at the public hearing. Thinking about small children, right? I'm not very familiar with garbage chutes, but is there any safety considerations we need to think about?
only open this far.
It's like a mail slot.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay. Very good.
All
Thank
set?
you very much.
I just would add that I appreciate the changes that you've made. I think increasing the balcony size is probably the right thing to do. It's certainly not hitting the easy button. It puts you through extra processes. Now you have to do a land swap with the neighbor, but it seems to be a good change to make an amenity more useful than just, again, taking the easy way out and saying you provided a balcony. So I can appreciate some of the changes that you've made.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this side? No? All right, so Mr. Lutrigo, I think you've heard the comments, and, you know, I appreciate very much the frustration that you may have sometimes having to come back, but if you were here a couple months ago, you would have seen us make a decision on a business owner who made changes without coming to us. and it was the wrong way to do it. So it may add a little bit of time, but I promise you, the collaboration with the city is going to be that much better for you and for everyone. From a procedural standpoint, you were saying about going to city council next month. I think actually it has to go to planning commission, so you would have to come back here for a public hearing in July.
Okay.
And then presuming that goes according to plan, it would,
I tried.
I know you did, and that's why you're here. And so it would then go to city council at the end of July, probably, towards the second meeting. Yes, sir.
It would have to be
August?
August, because there's only 14 days in between that, so it would be the first meeting in August.
So you're, okay, so you're gonna get jammed there, but nevertheless, I think if you come back with what we've asked for, and if those plans that you put up there are responsive to Vidia's, recommendations in her letter, you're probably on solid footing, okay? And just to be clear, this parcel of property where this is going to be built, which I think we all want it to be built, what's there now?
Nothing.
Is that where the semi-trucks are parked? No, who's that?
That's the preserves.
The preserves, okay. And you don't own that one?
I do.
You do? Okay, all right. So that being said, I think, do we need a motion then to set this for public hearing? I think that's the nod of the head at the next available meeting. Okay, so the ask is there a motion to set this for a public hearing at the next available planning commission meeting?
So moved.
Okay, Madam Mayor? Support. Support by Mr. Bachman. Discussion amongst us? None being heard. Mr. Packins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Harden,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you next month. Okay, moving on. We are at item 6C. This is consideration of 125 South Main. This is a request for special exception for payment in lieu of parking requirements. Mr. Peckins, floor is yours.
So this is regarding the Kumon, the old Kumon space. Currently office, we had a gentleman come in with building plans, and he submitted them to the building official, and I said, we need to talk about parking. So they're not gonna be changing anything on the facade. That's why your letter is coming from me and not Vidia specifically, because it's just strictly parking. So it's a 1,572 square foot space that required not as much parking for office, because that's 1 to 300, and now they're going to restaurant without alcohol, so it's 1 to 150. So they are deficient, I believe, 7 spaces, and they were given 8, and or they were grandfathered in for 8, and that is where we are now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Peckins? Now, would we, I'm sorry, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
I know.
Oh, I thought you had a question. Mr. Peckins, would we be able to look at the same sheet here for this?
So if I draw your attention
Yes, please.
to it's the one that's labeled 125, it might be 127 on yours, it's lot 9.
175 South Main?
Yep, it should be 125 South Main, that's a typo.
Okay.
The same parking study was done for lot 9, 4 days for 2 weeks, 3 times a day. Their hours of operation, I believe, are somewhere in the realm of 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., which is consistent-ish with other coffee shops in the area. I believe I looked up Desert Oasis today with Commissioner Murphy when we had a meeting, and they closed at 11 p.m. So it's consistent with other coffee shops in the area. And then you can see that the same lot doesn't have a huge spike. Some of the days it gets up to the mid-20s. At night, it's going to be a little bit more busy than during the morning. But I believe that we have adequate parking at these times of the days that we're scheduled to provide the parking payment in lieu of I believe it was 7 spaces.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Yes. Sir, do you want to come on up to the podium, or lectern, I'm sorry?
Hello, how you all doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My personal address?
Your first name and your business address is fine?
Saf Manusser, and address for the space that we're requiring is 125 South Main Street.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your business, what you're going to do.
So we want to bring a specific kind of coffee that comes straight from Yemen. So it's very unique. I know we have a lot of coffee shops in downtown Rochester, but the type of coffee we want to bring is a very unique concept. I think we'll do amazing here, you know, due to the foot traffic, and we want to bring a little bit more attention to the south side of South Main Street as well. I believe, based on the reports, I believe that we can potentially move forward, and due to the parking we also have in the back, and also I think it's something very unique that we can bring here and hopefully catch a lot of attention. And we're probably going to be one of the only coffee shops that are very authentic, strictly from Yemen.
I'm very excited for this opportunity. I have a question for you. Do you have any other coffee shops that you operate and own?
No.
Have you worked in any other?
Yes.
Okay, which one was that?
So I worked actually at 3. So
Okay.
you got Haraz, you have Qamariya, and then you have Qahwa House. Those are like the 3 biggest ones that we have in Dearborn. They've been going around all over America, honestly. In every state now you have 2 or 3 different types of coffee shops. The company that I worked with was Haraz. I believe they have 150 pending locations opening up nationwide.
Okay.
They have over 30 now. Qamariya has 30 with maybe around 20. Qahwa House is a little bit less than that, but they're doing just as well.
Is this a franchise or is this independently owned by you?
No, hopefully it's independently owned by me and a
Okay.
partner.
Wonderful. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Kenzick?
Yes, actually, I got a little bit of a concern here. I understand the availability of the number of parking spots in the parking lot that's basically right on the other side of the alley. However, where his coffee shop is proposed to be located, you know, on the north side of his building, you've got parking for FedEx, and on the south side of the building, you've got parking for several shops, whether it's for, you know, the chiropractor's office or Giorgio's, or I think there was even like a
Boxing gym.
Laser center.
Yeah.
yeah. And
Karate.
my concern is really the traffic flow through those 2 parking lots. Being a tenant of this building, are you entitled to use one or both of those parking lots?
I could help him. So we had that discussion, so FedEx we had him talk to FedEx. Anybody walks across to any of the shops on the south side, FedEx will have them towed. So they are very aware of that. We wanted him to be very aware of that, to know that's not their parking, but.
So that's
he has
a no.
full- That's a no there, but he has full access to, it's Ari's property. He is a tenant in their building. That parking is for him also. So he'll have his own, part of his own parking. They don't have spaces for each individual use there. And they all have different hours of operation, but they do get credit for parking on, it's one of the few places that has their own parking on there. So he has rights to that parking, but not to the FedEx.
So he'll have access to the parking on the
South side.
south side?
Correct.
Okay. But again, I guess that still has my concern, because somebody pulling in to the FedEx lot, they're gonna pass through there and say, well, I can't park here, and then they'll theoretically go on to the parking lot. But if they go on the south side of the building, you know, I've been there, it's quite hectic, especially when that boxing or karate school lets, you know, dropping students off or picking them up. It's a really hard time getting through. I'm not sure what, you know, if that comes into play here, and whether or not, you know, that's something we should be concerned about, or is there a way to manage that traffic better than it's being managed today?
Yes, so if I may,
Please.
we talked about this, we wanted him to be totally aware, Christie, we all talked about the challenges with that site, but I will tell you, Kuman was a drop-off learning center. They probably have as much traffic as a coffee shop would have. They constantly had turnover there, never had issues, so that helped us be more comfortable with the fact that what he's doing is, again, trying to pull the foot traffic down a bit, and you can come from the alley right through the back, so that helps also, so. They're valid concerns, we wanted to make sure that he was aware of that.
Yeah.
He was, and he had done his homework when he came in.
And they taught me everything, honestly. They showed me everything, so thank you to them. And
Good and the bad,
It's our
right?
downtown.
the good and the bad. They said the city of Rochester, they're pretty good, so.
All right, well, I guess as long as buyer beware.
Yes. Appreciate you guys.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant? No? Okay, so we would be asking for a motion, I believe, for payment in lieu of, it was 8 spaces, 7. Hang on, 7. Set the public hearing, I'm sorry. Okay, let me pull up sorry, this is digital for me. Okay, so we would suggest that you set a public hearing for the special exception request at your next available meeting. So that would be the motion.
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Bachman with a motion, is there support?
I'll support.
Ms. Clauser, support. Discussion, none being heard. Mr. Peckins, the roll.
I just want to make sure if it's 7 or 8, unless you have it specifically, because I was going to pull it up.
So
I printed out the wrong.
On the it says request of 8 additional spaces. In the subject here, though, it talks about 7 spaces. It says they are now seeking a special exception for payment in lieu, providing for the 7 spaces.
Correct. Then the 8 is what they were previously,
Okay.
yeah.
So they need 15 total then. Okay,
So it is 7.
7. Ms. Clauser, you have a clarification?
Yeah,
Question.
it doesn't go to city council, right? Or only if the funding
10.
only
10 or
goes
more.
10? Got it. Thank you for,
If they wanted to ask for a payment.
got it. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have support, discussion is over. Mr. Peckins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the agenda, I believe that is all of the items here. Let me just double check, please. So now we've got miscellaneous May 2025 parking study, which is attached here too. That was part of our packet. Mr. Peckins, do you have any comments on this?
That was just a placeholder, so I could house this somewhere in the packet.
I appreciate that. Any questions about the parking study, ladies and gentlemen? None? Okay, line item number 8, public comment. Would anyone like to come up and make a comment about what was discussed or what was not discussed? Now is your time. No? Okay, and then I just want to add, and we talked about this a little bit previously about the next meeting. So we will receive proposed language concerning an amendment to the zoning ordinance as it pertains to South Street and the retail, accessory retail, ancillary retail as it comports to certain businesses down South Street, okay? So be prepared for that at the July meeting, okay? Any questions anyone want to ask Mr. Banda? None? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you.